Pain relief is not just found in a bottle. It turns out that certain foods can be like nature's Tylenol. Welcome to the Exam Room Live, brought to you by the Physicians Committee. Hi, I am the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll. We appreciate you raising your health IQ with us in more than 150 countries around the world and making the Exam Room one of the nominees for Podcast of the Year by Veg News. So today we're talking about pain relief. I mean, who hasn't had a headache? They're no fun. Or maybe you've gone to the gym and you've overdone it. You get a little bit sore. That's no fun either. Maybe you have arthritis. Every day can be a struggle. Certainly no fun there either. But today we're going to be talking about pain relief, not just for short-term pains, but long-term aches. And here with us today is a gentleman who knows a thing or two about pain relief, a former team physician for the St. Louis Cardinals in Major League Baseball, the Rams in the National Football League, and oh, by the way, happens to be an Ironman triathlete himself, Dr. Jim Loomis. Thanks for being here, my friend.
Oh, my pleasure, Chuck. Anytime.
Yeah, man. If there's a question that you guys have for Dr. Loomis, go ahead, post it in the comments or in the chat. This is a truncated version of the show, but I promise you we will get to as many as we possibly can when we open up the doctor's mailbag. So, Dr. Loomis, at the top, I kind of referred to food as nature's natural pain relievers. Is that an accurate portrayal?
It is, Chuck. And the reason that food can be so effective in treating pain, helping people with chronic pain, has to do with inflammation. And we know when we start peeling back layers, no pun intended, but start peeling back layers of the onion, whether we're looking at chronic pain, autoimmune diseases, even cancer and diabetes and heart disease, what we find at the middle is inflammation. And the best way to control inflammation is not taking aspirin or ibuprofen or Aleve. It's food, because the food we eat can either be pro-inflammatory, can create inflammation in our bodies, or it can be anti-inflammatory. And most people who follow kind of a standard Western diet, it creates a highly inflammatory milieu within our bodies.
So let's talk about some of these specific foods here. If we're doing something that's just kind of like an ache or a pain from the gym, should we be eating any differently than if a headache pops up suddenly?
Well, actually, and when we talk about improving someone's overall health, there's no one special diet you need to do to kind of take care of these aches and pains, and another diet to prevent you from getting colon cancer, and another diet to help prevent and reverse diabetes. It's really all the same thing. There are a few specific foods, though, that have highly inflammatory properties. Probably the one that I recommend the most is turmeric, actually. There have been head-to-head studies looking at, say, the use of turmeric compared to things like ibuprofen. That's a class of medicines called nonsteroidal anti-inflammatories, or NSAIDs. So when you compare turmeric to NSAIDs, and people say with chronic degenerative arthritis, it's been shown that turmeric is just as effective without the side effects, right? Because that class of medicines has a whole bunch of different side effects. It can raise your blood pressure, it can cause you to retain fluid, it can irritate your stomach, cause ulcers. So turmeric is one that I recommend a lot. And in fact, when I was training for Ironman, the kind of, because there was always aches and pains after these really long bike rides and runs, I started taking a turmeric supplement. And the supplement I used actually had ginger with it as well. Ginger is another highly inflammatory food that you can consume.
Yeah, ginger also good for nausea, if I'm not mistaken. That's pretty interesting. So it sounds to me kind of like the picture that you're painting here is that it's, when it comes to pain relief, it may be more of a matter of omission, more so than actually what it is that you're eating. Obviously, benefits coming from ginger and turmeric, but say, you go to the gym, you work out, you maybe sprain a muscle, and you want to feel a little bit better about life, so you swing through the drive-through at McDonald's. What's going to happen to a person that eats that double cheeseburger after a workout compared to somebody who goes with a healthier, like a quinoa bowl or something like that?
If for anyone who's seen the documentary, The Game Changers, which I had the honor of being in, the athletes talk about this actually, that inflammation in our bodies comes from kind of two broad sources. It comes from the overconsumption of omega-6 fatty acids, which create pro-inflammatory compounds. That's what you're going to get when you have that quarter pounder with cheese, right? Meat, dairy, very high in omega-6s. And then the other thing that's kind of missing from when most of our food is brown, when the primary color of a plate of food is brown, right? Like you see with a hamburger and fries, what we're missing are antioxidants, because when we exercise, we create what are called oxygen-free radicals, and oxygen-free radicals are good in small doses, but in high doses, they actually can damage our cells and our cell walls. And in fact, the muscle soreness and stiffness you get after a hard workout, say you haven't been running in a while and you go out and run 5 miles and the next day you can't walk because you're so sore and stiff, that is damage to your muscles directly from this oxidative stress, these oxygen-free radicals. Now, our bodies have a very limited ability to mitigate oxidative stress. And the only way we can augment that is through plants and through dietary antioxidants. And the only place you find those is in plants, because these antioxidants are actually the plant's natural mechanism to protect them from, viruses and bacteria. And in general, the more color a food has, the more anti-inflammatory, the more highly antioxidant it is. And so again, when we go through that drive-through at McDonald's, we've got two things going on. We're taking in too much omega-6 fatty acids, which create inflammation, and not enough antioxidants, which help combat some of the inflammation. And every single athlete, and I experienced this myself. I mean, I used to be a pretty competitive marathoner back in med school. I'd run a marathon. I followed a standard Western diet. 3 or 4 days, I couldn't walk, right? My muscles were so sore. Fast forward at age 60, I do an Ironman. I honestly can tell you, I never got significantly sore, stiff, because of all the antioxidants and the omega-3 fatty acids, which are the anti-inflammatory components of that diet.
Yeah, and I love the story that you tell about the day after you did the Ironman triathlon, and all of these 20-somethings are just shuffling around, having a hard time moving their legs, getting up and down the stairs in the lobby of the hotel, and you go on a hike the next day.
Yeah, I climbed up the mountain because it was in Lake Placid up in the Adirondacks, and anyway, yeah, it's pretty amazing. And there are some very specific foods which have been shown to really help prevent some of this muscle soreness and such. So it's things like tart cherry juice, for example, or pomegranate juice, very highly anti-inflammatory. Pineapple actually is highly anti-inflammatory. It has a compound called bromelain, which actually has been shown to help also with injury, with bruising and things like that. We know that there's some healing spices like cinnamon. We already talked about turmeric and ginger, but also cinnamon is highly anti-inflammatory. Beets are highly anti-inflammatory, and that works a couple of ways. The betalain, which is what makes the beets red, is an antioxidant, but also beets increase blood flow and kind of help wash out all those toxins after a hard workout. So again, there are some very specific foods which have been shown. Peppermint's another one, which have been shown to specifically combat inflammation. Blueberries, another one. Any of the color berries. So again, once again, the more color a food has, the more anti-inflammatory, antioxidant properties it has.
So we're talking about muscle aches and pains, arthritis right now, but what if somebody develops a headache during the day? Are there any foods really that may prove helpful then?
There are. Now migraine headaches and specifically are caused because, and we don't really know exactly why, but what happens is the blood vessels initially constrict, and some people will see flashing lights and such, and then they dilate. And since our skull is a closed space, when those blood vessels dilate, it puts pressure on the brain and causes a headache. So actually, PCRM has done some research looking at very specific foods to help combat migraine headaches. So oftentimes in a situation like that, it's not one food. It might be specific to one individual. So we do what's called an elimination diet. So we kind of take away the common triggers. And it might be some foods that in general people can tolerate more, who don't have headaches. So things like gluten and soy and corn. There's a variety of hormones, red, alcohol, red wine, for example. So what we typically do is take away all these kind of common foods and then add them back one at a time to see which foods serve as triggers. And the research suggests that, in fact, and again, when we follow a plant-based diet, and if we can specifically identify these very specific triggers of the migraines, we can keep those in check without medications.
Rochelle, I want to share this, is a fan of turmeric. She says that she began putting it in her oatmeal after seeing Dr. B. That would be our good friend, Dr. Will Bolsowitz. Also bangs the drum for turmeric all the time. We have a question, though, about some of the spices, Dr. Loomis, you were talking about. This one comes to us from Terry at 1230. Terry's wondering whether it's possible to overdo it with something like curcumin or cinnamon or those other anti-inflammatory spices.
Well, there is some evidence that very high doses of turmeric may affect the liver. We're talking huge doses. I think, I take a turmeric supplement myself, and as long as you take it according to the instructions on the bottle, if you will. You can also do it with just with food. I mean, you can take ground turmeric and sprinkle it in your oatmeal, like the previous commenter said. Some people will make what's called a golden tea. They'll take green tea and add some turmeric to it. So you can do it just by using you can even take the fresh turmeric root and grate it up and put it in, a curry or a dal or whatever. But turmeric's the only one I know that there is a little bit of research about overdosing, that you can take too much. And I don't know about cinnamon, though. I mean, again, I take cinnamon as a spice. I don't take a supplement for that. I take it as a spice.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, yeah,
the flavor would be too potent to overdose on cinnamon, in my experience.
No doubt. That's a flavor right there, man.
Yeah, right.
Let me share this one. This one is from Carrie at 1241. This is just a phenomenal recipe if you're curious about maybe how to get some turmeric into your diet here. What Carrie does is blends it with dates and a few cashews, vanilla, and water. Sounds like they make a little smoothie there. That sounds absolutely delicious to me.
Yeah. So again, when I was training, I developed this recovery shake to help me recover faster and take care of the little aches and pains. So it was tart cherry juice. We already talked about that. Tart cherry juice has been shown to prevent and the delayed onset muscle soreness that people get. Tart cherry juice, blueberries, another one that's been shown. I put chia seed in there. That's the omega-3s, which are anti-inflammatory. I put turmeric, ginger, and cinnamon. I put and then some kale or spinach, and then I'd add a frozen banana just for the carbs, and it was phenomenal. And I can tell you, I never got sore, I never got stiff, and I think that recovery shake had a lot to do with that. We've talked about it on the show before, Chuck.
Oh yeah, and every time we do, I'd say bottle it. Let's get that on some store shelves, help some people out. Tracy, 1235. Let's talk about how much turmeric would you put in a 64-ounce? Well, she's given specifics here. 64-ounce smoothie. Like, are you putting a quarter cup in there, or how?
No. I put about a teaspoon in.
Okay.
I put a teaspoon of ginger, teaspoon of turmeric, and a teaspoon of cinnamon in my smoothie. And it's maybe a little bit less than 64 ounces, might be 32. So, but I think a teaspoon, you want to get too much turmeric is going to make it taste a little bit bitter, actually. So you want to be a little bit careful with that. And again, you have to be careful with the cinnamon because it can be overpowering, and the ginger too. But I found that was a nice flavor profile for me, at least.
Oh, it sounds delicious. Floridian Light here. So if you're going to supplement with it, how much turmeric or curcumin would you recommend for daily joint pain relief?
Well, let's see. I happen to have the bottle here that I take, and I can tell you what. So this one has, this is 3 capsules, and it gives you 1,500 milligrams of turmeric, 300 milligrams of ginger, and then that equates to about 150 milligrams of curcumin, and then it has a touch of biopyrin. So biopyrin, this is interesting and important. So the active, as we've kind of already alluded to, the active anti-inflammatory in turmeric is actually curcumin, and adding a little bit of black pepper to a dish you're going to consume with curcumin or with turmeric actually increases the absorption of the curcumin by about 40%. So I would always put a few twists of black pepper into my smoothie. This particular supplement that I'm using has that already added to it. It has a little bit of black pepper extract in it to help absorb that curcumin more efficiently.
Hold on. I got to go back to the recovery shake because the chat blew up. Everybody's asking if you could slow down and repeat that recipe. I think that what we ought to do is put it in the show description here. for
Yeah.
people who watch on demand here as well. But
Yeah.
go over that for us one more time, if you don't mind.
So I put in, so I use tart cherry juice as the base. And then I add one frozen banana, about a cup of, I usually use frozen blueberries because I'm looking for I like the smoothie. If I'm training in hot weather, I like that. I put in, a big handful of kale or spinach. I'd put in a couple tablespoons of chia seed. I'd put in a teaspoon of turmeric, ginger, and cinnamon. Sometimes I would put in actually half a cup or so of white beans for a little bit of protein. And that's a really kind of a neutral flavor. And if you want to sweeten it up, if that's not sweet enough, you can add a couple of dates. I typically didn't, but there's nothing wrong with that. Again, those are healthy carbs to help replenish your carbs after a hard workout. And I believe that's it. Pretty straightforward.
Oh, man,
but again, science behind all of that. That's an evidence-based drink, actually. I did a really deep dive into exercise recovery, and that's kind of what I came up with.
Bottle it, Dr. Loomis. Bottle it. Let's wrap up with a question about fat. Fat by itself inherently, is that inflammatory?
So, this is a perfect example of what we call nutritional reductionism, right? So,
Right.
We don't talk about food anymore. We talk about what food's made out of. We talk about fat and carbs and protein, and that's a whole nother show, basically. So fat in and of itself, we need fat, and there's nothing wrong with fat. However, standard Western, it depends on so it's just like protein, just like carbs, it's the package the fat comes in, right? So when we're getting these healthy fats from things like nuts and seeds, even like broccoli has omega-3 fatty acids in it. When we're getting our fats in these healthy packages, they actually have profound health benefits. They're anti-inflammatory. They help us absorb certain vitamins. The problem is when we're getting our fat from a big piece of red meat or a glass of milk or a bowl of ice cream, right? Or we're using a lot of cooking oil. That's where we started to get into trouble. And fats in general, there's different kinds of fats. There's omega-6 fatty acids. There's omega-3 fatty acids. We talk about saturated, polyunsaturated, monounsaturated. Most of the plant-based sources of fat are, in fact, on the healthy side. Now, you do have to be careful. Edible oils can be quite inflammatory, so I really try to keep those to a minimum. At home, I don't cook with any oil. People, coconut oil. What about coconut oil? Well, coconut oil is great if you want to put it on your skin, but it's not great to put in to cook with. It's 100% saturated fat. There's no omega-3s. So fats are an important part of our diet, but you need to be careful. In general, you really try to limit your total fat intake to 30, 35 grams a day, somewhere in there. And they need to be healthy fat sources, mainly from plants.
Let me slide one more in. From Kelly at 1245. Fresh ginger, is that better than ground up ginger that you might get in a little jar?
Well, so the ground ginger is fine. The problem is that the potency will diminish over time, right? So I use powdered ginger, but I use a lot of it in my cook. I mean, I use it when I'm training. I'm using a fair amount, so I buy little bottles and just replenish it fairly frequently. But I think you can get the same effect from ginger. Just be aware that over time, any spice will diminish in potency as it ages.
That's another one that you don't want to overdo it with, man.
No,
That's got a heck of a kick to it.
That's right.
Interesting comment from Boop at 1247. Dr. Loomis needs a cooking show, which is very interesting given the fact that behind the scenes, we are working with you and Karen Dugan, the St. Louis Veg Girl from the Center for Plant-Based Living, working on a show called Doc and Chef. Give us the 1-minute synopsis about this amazing project.
Yeah, this is really, thank you, Chuck. So one of the things I started to recognize a while ago is the lack of culinary literacy that people have. We can talk about plant-based diets all day. We can read cookbooks. There's a lot of amazing cookbooks out there. But if you don't, if your culinary skills end at reheating something in the microwave or boiling some water, it's going to be hard to engage. And not only that, we tell people what to do, but we don't oftentimes give them the why. And that's so important. And my good friend and colleague, Karen Dugan, who has the Center for Plant-Based Living in St. Louis, is really a master at helping people develop the culinary techniques that they need to develop this culinary literacy. So we thought, well, wait a minute, why don't we marry nutrition science to your plate of food? And so the idea is it'll be an ongoing series of relatively short videos, maybe 10 minutes, where the first 5 minutes or so will be on kind of the why you should be doing, soy, for example. I've heard soy's bad. It's not bad. This is why. Now let's marry that to your plate. And here's a beautiful tofu recipe to make. And Karen will demonstrate that. So we're really excited about that. In fact, I'm headed to St. Louis this weekend, and we're going to hopefully get the first set of shows in the can. So really looking forward to that. So we're hoping to launch probably be March-ish, I'm thinking, but that's the idea. So thank you for that. We recognize that as well, and are on our way with the Doc and Chef cooking YouTube channel.
Can't wait. Do I get the official executive producer title?
Yeah, you can have the executive.
Yeah.
This is our logo, the Doc and Chef. Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yep. I'm super excited. This is just it's a home run kind of a concept, man. And I'm so happy for you and Karen. And I think that this is really going to be something special. So give them a follow on Instagram. You saw that was up there for a little while at the Doc and Chef, and we'll get you covered with all of the updates and still to come. But thank you for doing this on short notice, my friend. This has just been an absolute treat.
My pleasure. Anytime, Chuck. I love this, and all this information is so important for people to have, and you do such an amazing job, and I'm honored to be here.
Thank you, my friend. And you may book a telemed appointment in certain states with Dr. Loomis right now by visiting barnardmedical.org. We're licensed in 18 states plus the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. So barnardmedical.org, or old school, pick up the phone, call them 202-527-7500. And we are out of time, my friends. I want to say thank you to Dr. Loomis once again, and to the crew behind the scenes for making the magic happen. Thank you, guys. And to you, exam roomies, thanks for the wonderful questions. Hope that we brought you some great pain relief today. We'll talk to you again tomorrow when our Exam Room Health All-Star Series rolls on with the one and only Dr. Alan Desmond, leading us with the plant-based diet revolution. For everybody here at the Physicians Committee, I am the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll. Till then, keep it plant-based.